When we think about the first Thanksgiving, we usually picture a harvest table, Pilgrims and Native Americans, food, gratitude, and the beginning of a new nation. But long before the turkey and corn, long before Plymouth Rock, there were deeper underlying reasons that these people even came here at all. The Pilgrims didn't come to America for wealth. They didn't come here as an adventure. They didn't come here to build an empire. They came because they believed that obedience to God was more important than obedience to kings. Tonight, we're going to talk about why faith came first in America and why the Pilgrims were willing to risk it all for freedom of conscience. To understand the Pilgrims, we have to start in England. In the early 1600s, government and religion were inseparable. The Church of England was not just a church, it was an arm of the British government. The monarch was the head of the church, attendance was required, and belief was enforced. If you worshipped outside the approved structure, you were not just considered a religious dissenter, you were considered a threat. Fines were common, imprisonment happened, homes were searched, and meetings were broken up. This wasn't theoretical oppression, it was daily life. The Pilgrims were part of a small group known as separatists. Unlike the Puritans, who hoped to reform the Church of England, the separatists believed the church was beyond repair. They believed true worship required separation from state control. They wanted local congregations, scripture as their authority, no bishops appointed by kings, no government dictating worship. These were not radicals in the modern sense. They were ordinary people, farmers, tradesmen, mothers and fathers, and even children. What made them different was conviction. Choosing conscience came at a price. Separatist meetings were illegal. Members were watched. Leaders were jailed. One of their key meeting places was a manor in Scrooby, England. From the outside, it looked ordinary. On the inside, it was a place of prayer, scripture, and resistance. Eventually, the pressure became unbearable. They faced a hard choice: conform and survive, or obey conscience and lose everything. They chose conscience. Their first escape was not America, it was the Netherlands. The Dutch Republic was one of the few places in Europe with real religious tolerance. After a dangerous escape from England, many pilgrims settled in Leiden. For the first time, they could worship freely. No fines, no raids, no arrests. But freedom came with new challenges. Life in Leiden was hard. Jobs were hard to come by. Many worked in textile mills. Poverty was common. But the underlying concern was not economic, it was cultural. Their children were growing up Dutch, speaking Dutch, adopting Dutch ways, and losing their English identity. The Pilgrims feared something deeper than hardship. They feared losing their community, their faith traditions, and their way of life. Freedom alone wasn't enough. They wanted freedom and continuity. America offered something no European country could: distance. Across the Atlantic, there would be no king, no bishop, no state church. They could build a community from the ground up, based on faith and responsibility. It was an enormous risk. The New World was dangerous. Unknown climate, harsh winters, limited supplies, and no guarantee of survival. Yet they believed obedience to conscience was worth the risk. The Mayflower was not built for comfort. It was crowded, cold, dark, and storm-tossed. Families were packed together for over 2 months. Illness spread, children cried, adults prayed. This was not a pleasure cruise. It was an act of faith. At sea, they were completely dependent on each other, and this dependency shaped what came next. Before they ever stepped on land, they signed an agreement. The Mayflower Compact was not a constitution, but it was revolutionary. It declared they would govern themselves, that they would submit to laws made for the common good, and that authority came from people under God. This was self-government rooted in moral obligation. Not chaos, not mob rule, community responsibility. Faith and civic life were already intertwined. The first winter was brutal. Nearly half the Pilgrims died. Yet the records show continued prayer, worship, and communal care. Faith wasn't ceremonial. It was daily survival. They believed gratitude was owed, even in hardship. That mindset shaped the first Thanksgiving, not as a holiday, but as a response to providence. Now, an important and honest clarification. The Pilgrims believed deeply in religious freedom for themselves, but they did not yet believe in full religious liberty for everyone. That broader understanding would come later. America's ideas of freedom grew over time. This series isn't about pretending our past was perfect. It's about understanding how convictions, flawed but sincere, set events in motion. The Pilgrims planted a seed, not a finished system, not a perfect model, but a beginning. The idea that conscience matters, that faith should not be coerced, that communities can govern themselves under moral responsibility. Other Christian groups would soon follow, each adding to the American religious landscape. America did not begin as a nation. It began as a people willing to risk everything for the freedom to live by conscience. In the next episode, we will look at those who followed: Puritans, Anglicans, and the early colonial churches, and how their beliefs shaped the colonies that later became the United States. Thanks for watching. If you like this story and would like to see others, please give me a like. Consider subscribing to my channel and share with your friends. Until next time, peace, freedom, and the American story.